The referee that gave Caitlin Clark a technical, exposed.
It was quickly communicated that obviously there was what the ref interpreted was not actually the case of what happened.
Breaking news just shattered across the sports world, and the entire basketball community is in absolute uproar over a late-breaking development that has completely upended what looked like an intentional sabotage of a franchise player. If you thought professional sports officiating had already reached the absolute peak of theatrical absurdity, think again, because the latest escalation involving the Indiana Fever, the WNBA league office, and a heavily disputed referee decision has crossed a boundary that no one thought possible. Picture the explosive scene unfolding live on the court during a high-state, fiercely contested battle between the Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky. Caitlin Clark driving hard down the baseline, fighting through heavy defensive pressure from Natasha Cloud, losing her balance completely out of control, and accidentally colliding with a baseline official.
That she thought there was extra contact with Caitlin's forearm here as they were explaining it.
In any normal basketball universe, operating under standard athletic logic, bodies flying out of bounds and incidental contact happen 50 times a night without a single whistle being blown out of malice. But instead of letting the flow of the game continue, the referee immediately reached for her pocket, blew the whistle with intense authority, and slapped Clark with a technical foul, claiming she had intentionally initiated forearm contact with the official.
Accidentally bumping into an official after getting pushed out of bounds when her momentum is carrying her in the referee's direction. Referee sees her coming, instead of moving out the way, leans into it, gets bumped, sits there for a second, says, "Nah, I really don't like Caitlin Clark." Tees her up.
Inside the arena and across digital platforms was fueled by the devastating consequence attached to that specific whistle. Because under the league's strict disciplinary guidelines, reaching that particular milestone marked Clark's 8th technical foul of the regular season. In the rule book that governs these athletes, hitting 8 technical fouls triggers an automatic mandatory 1-game suspension alongside a heavy fine, which meant the Fever superstar was suddenly facing a forced absence that would sideline her for a blockbuster showdown against Breanna Stewart and the New York Liberty. We have Caitlin Clark, who accidentally bumped into an official.
We have Caitlin Clark, who accidentally bumped into an official, gets called for a technical foul. Then we have Natasha Cloud, part of the Black Lesbian Mafia, grabbing this official by the hips. Maybe that's why she didn't call it. She likes getting grabbed by the hips by Natasha Cloud. I don't know. Gets grabbed by the hips from Natasha Cloud. Natasha Cloud tries to push her and move her out the way so she can argue with an Indiana Fever player. Absolutely no technical foul. If that's not a double standard,
As fans, analysts, and former players realized the gravity of the situation, flooding every platform with fierce debates and pointing out the staggering double standard of penalizing an off-balance player for an accidental collision, while similar physical contact goes unnoticed across basketball games everywhere. Indiana head coach Stephanie White did not hold back her frustration during her post-game press conference, either openly blasting the decision as a terrible call born of zero awareness, while Clark herself calmly told reporters that she had already reviewed the tape multiple times and knew the contact was entirely inadvertent with 0 words exchanged. What made this entire sequence even more explosive was the digital detective work that followed within minutes of the final buzzer, as fans and independent analysts began digging into public records to identify the exact officiating crew responsible for the controversial whistle. Names started trending across social media platforms, with supporters dissecting previous games, reviewing referee assignment sheets, and sharing high-resolution freeze frames of the collision. The discourse quickly spiraled beyond a simple bad basketball call into a full-scale examination of accountability, with thousands of users demanding transparency from the league office regarding how referees are evaluated and whether personal biases influence game management. Yes,
ESPN called up Adam Silver themselves, like, "Adam, you out your fucking mind with this dumbass referee suspending CC? Are you out your dumb mind with this foolish referee suspending CC?"
Professional sports is analyzed under a microscopic lens. Hiding behind corporate silence is no longer an option for league executive. The public outcry reached a boiling point because supporters felt that the penalty was not just an isolated mistake, but part of a troubling pattern where the league's most visible star is subjected to an entirely different set of rules compared to veterans and opponents across the conference. Music, the pressure cooker, reached maximum capacity as sports talk shows, podcasts, and digital creators spent hours dissecting the ramifications of an 8 technical suspension for a player carrying the commercial weight of the entire league. Music viewership numbers, ticket sales, and merchandise revenue across the WNBA have surged to historic heights, largely due to the massive influx of new fans tuning in, specifically to watch Caitlin Clark orchestrate the Fever offense, threatening to bench the league's biggest attraction over an incidental collision with a referee felt to millions of viewers like a catastrophic cell phone by an administration struggling to manage its own explosive growth. Analysts pointed out that growing pains are normal when a league transitions from a niche regional sport into a global mainstream media phenomenon. But failing to protect the integrity of the games through competent and consistent officiating threatens to alienate the exact audience the league spent decades trying to capture. And then just when the narrative seemed locked in and the internet was preparing for a multi-day media storm, the storyline completely reversed course in a matter of hours. In an unprecedented move that caught the entire sports media landscape off guard, the WNBA office officially announced that they had reviewed the sequence and completely rescinded the technical foul. Just like that, the 8th technical was wiped off the ledger. The impending suspension was entirely cancelled and Clark was cleared to take the floor against New York. While the league office deserves credit for moving with lightning speed to fix a glaring mistake before it compromised a marquee matchup, the rapid reversal has done nothing to quell the underlying fury of a fan base that has grown exhausted by constant officiating controversy. The lightning-fast turnaround by the league office sparked an entirely new wave of debate regarding why the intervention was necessary in the first place and what it reveals about the internal review processes governing professional basketball. Critics immediately asked why an obvious non-all or incidental touch required a massive public uproar and viral internet so soothing before league executives stepped in to correct it. If the video evidence was clear enough to warrant an immediate rescission hours after the game concluded, the officiating crew on the floor should have possessed the situational awareness and composure to recognize the accidental nature of the collision in real time instead of escalating the situation with a technical foul. Music, the incident laid bare a growing disconnect between the referees executing the game on the hardwood and the league leadership attempting to maintain competitive balance and viewer trust from the front office. Consider the broader economic and cultural context surrounding every single game. The Indiana Fever play right now. Arena capacities are maxed out. Opposing teams are moving to larger venues just to accommodate the massive ticket demand. And television ratings are shattering historical records across every major sports network. In this high-stakes environment, every whistle carries multi-million-dollar implications for broadcast partners, sponsors, and franchise valuation. Music, when an official makes a game-altering call that appears disconnected from standard basketball rules, it invites immediate speculation and conspiracy theories from fans who are already skeptical of institutional fairness. The league cannot afford to have its product viewed as anything less than entirely legitimate, which makes the initial issuance of that 8th technical foul an avoidable disaster that severely tested the patience of the entire basketball ecosystem. As the dust settles on this chaotic chapter and Caitlin Clark prepares to lead her team through the grueling remainder of the schedule, the spotlight remains firmly fixed on the officiating department. Music players, coaches, and fans are demanding clear, transparent guidelines on how technical fouls are assessed, particularly when it comes to incidental contact, emotional expressions, and routine physical play during high-intensity moments. Music, the rapid rescission of the penalty proved that the league is watching closely and willing to correct egregious error. But it also highlighted the urgent need for proactive reform rather than reactive damage control until referees across the board demonstrate a consistent, fair, and professional approach to managing games without letting personal frustrations or reputation-based calls dictate their whistle. The shadow of controversy will continue to linger over every single possession in the WNBA. The ripple effects of this entire ordeal extend far beyond a single regular season matchup or an individual player's technical foul tally. When fans invest their hard-earned money into season tickets, streaming subscriptions, and official merchandise, they do so with the reasonable expectation that the game will be officiated with fairness, precision, and complete neutrality. Every time a referee inserts themselves into the narrative through questionable technical fouls or overly sensitive whistleblowing, it chips away at the foundational trust between the league and its audience. Throughout the sports industry, from the National Basketball Association down to collegiate athletics, maintaining the purity of the competition is paramount. When that purity is compromised by perceived incompetence or arbitrary rule enforcement, the backlash is swift, relentless, and damaging to the sport's long-term growth trajectory. Moreover, the psychological toll on elite athletes competing under such an intense microscope cannot be understated. Music Caitlin Clark has faced an unprecedented level of physical attention, defensive scheming, and media scrutiny ever since she stepped foot onto a professional basketball court. Opposing players naturally want to test a generational rookie, and physical play is an inherent part of competing at the highest level. Music, however, there is a distinct boundary between hard competitive defense and punitive officiating that singles out a player for how they move, react, or express themselves on the floor. When routine athletic movements like trying to save a loose ball or maintaining balance near the sideline are penalized with technical fouls that carry suspension risk, it forces the athlete to second-guess their natural instincts during high-pressure moments of the game. Music, the role of sports media in amplifying these incidents, has also undergone a massive transformation in recent years. In the past, a controversial referee decision might have generated a brief segment on morning sports shows and a couple of newspaper columns before fading from the public consciousness by the next game day. Today, digital platforms, fan communities, and independent analysts, music, dissect every single frame of game footage within minutes of the final buzzer. Camera angles from multiple vantage points are analyzed in slow motion. Referee tendencies are cataloged in public databases, and accountability movements organize organically online. Music, this level of digital transparency means that officiating crews can no longer operate in the shadows of obscurity. Every call is permanently recorded, debated, and judged by millions of passionate observers who expect absolute excellence from professionals entrusted with managing the game. Looking forward, the WNBA leadership faces a critical juncture in how they manage their officiating personnel and address public concerns regarding consistency. Implementing rigorous training programs, establishing transparent review boards, and holding officials accountable for clear mistakes are essential steps toward restoring total confidence in the league's competitive integrity. Fans are not asking for perfection from referees because basketball is an exceptionally fast-paced game officiated in real time by human beings facing split-second decision. Music, what fans are demanding and what the sport desperately requires is baseline consistency where the rules apply equally to every single player on the court. Music, regardless of their star status, rookie standing, or media narrative surrounding them. As the intensity of the playoff race ramps up and every single victory becomes vital for postseason seeding, the margin for error for both players and officials has effectively vanished. The Indiana Fever understand that opponents are going to bring their absolute best effort every single night, and navigating that competitive gauntlet requires mental toughness, tactical adaptability, and unwavering focus. Music, at the same time, the officiating crew stepping onto the floor must rise to the occasion, ensuring that they facilitate a fair and thrilling contest rather than